Hey everybody, welcome back. In this video, I want to talk really quick about something that you should not do if you want to get over recovery as fast as possible in terms of your anxiety and your health anxiety. This is going to be tailored to people who are very early in their anxiety journey. Whether they've gone to a doctor, they've gone to a specialist, they've seen somebody, they've gotten the okay, whether they haven't and they don't really know what's going on or what way to go, but they feel like it's anxiety. They've stumbled across a couple people who have told them it's anxiety, or they've stumbled upon some YouTube channels and it sounds like it's anxiety. But before I get into that, obviously we know for a couple of videos now, I'm always outside. I'm always, recording my videos outside. And I just want to show, I guess, how far, I've come in a year's time, a year and a half's time. A year and a half ago, I wouldn't be able to make a video outside. I know I said this in one or two of the other videos, but I definitely wouldn't have been able to, look up at the sky and admire things, just see, how beautiful it can be. I would never be able to go outside in hot weather, warm weather, because that would be a massive trigger for me. Borderline panic mode if temperature was rising and if an air conditioner was broken. I remember over the course of a summer, the air conditioner broke and I felt like I couldn't breathe, basically, and it would amplify that symptom more than any other one, and then you would focus on that. But now, I'm out on about 80 plus degree weather, 90 plus degree weather. I was out playing a little bit of basketball yesterday in 91 degree weather. So it just goes to show you that a little bit of hope, start this video off with a little bit of hope to let you know that it might look bad right now, but you might not think that you can overcome. You might think that you might be dealing with this for the rest of your life, XYZ, but that's not going to be the case if you listen to people who have been there and done it before you and who have overcome certain obstacles. And I'm not one to say that I'm 100% over it yet, but if I still feel like I can respond better to certain things. But if you take a step back and look from the the outside looking in at where I was a year ago and where I am now, you can see massive improvements. So with that being said, let's jump into this video, which again is going to be made for people who are early on in this struggle, early on in this suffering, and basically just something that you should do or should not do, which I guess I did, and this will help you, it should drastically, help you be able to get over certain obstacles and get over certain humps earlier, okay? And what that is basically don't drag out your anxiety recovery process. It sounds simple and it sounds like, why would I want to do that? But you don't, I think, consciously want to do that. It just happens by your actions or lack thereof action taken. So the first thing is, once you really fall into anxiety and you start to experience panic attacks and you don't really know what's going on and it kind of starts to take over a little bit, once you first start to spiral, immediately go to a doctor. Immediately start to get things ruled out. Immediately start to get things checked. If you're coming from, the cardiophobia area, which was my main area of fear and suffering, go to a doctor. Get referred to a specialist and tell them that you want to see. I know there's some people, if they're younger, you could be in a much smaller minority of people who could actually have any kind of heart conditions or issues. But don't just go in there to a doctor, have them say okay, it's anxiety. I think it's anxiety. You're far too young to experience XYZ. I would tell you to essentially demand a referral for a cardiologist because you want certain tests done, whatever those tests would be, EKG, ECG, stress test, and I would just kind of go from there and then see what happens with that. Most likely those are all going to come back fine, and then you really know that everything with your heart is good. And if you don't do that, if you just go to a doctor, if you just listen to a doctor say, oh, well, you're fine, it's just anxiety, and you get no tests done, the next time you walk out of there, you'll feel good. The next time you feel a symptom, you're going to start to spiral again. Okay, so the first and foremost, get to a doctor, get to a cardiologist, get the tests done, and then essentially beyond a doubt that you're okay. Okay, if that's not enough for you, it wasn't enough for me, one other visit, I would say, is perfectly fine. If you don't trust one, go to another, but go to a different group, a different, set of cardiologists, obviously, to run their own separate tests. If both tests come back good, now you got to start to believe. Okay, in the beginning, it's hard. Even if you go to one doctor, two doctors, sometimes they tell you you're okay. It's very hard to believe it because you feel misdiagnosed. That's just par for the course. Everybody goes through that, and everybody thinks and believes that. But if you go to two, very, very unlikely both come back that you're okay, and you're not okay. So if you go to both and they tell you that you're good, it's time to start, ramping up certain things, ramping up exposures, ramping up things to like push yourself and challenge yourself, and start to respond better to symptoms when they arise. If your heart rate is one thing and you're afraid of exercise, which happens with mostly everyone with cardiophobia, start to exercise a little bit, slowly. Go for little walks. If you're somebody that's like, afraid to get out of the house, just walk around your house, apartment for a little bit. Go, then start to just progress a little bit. You're going to find out that you're fine when you're going for walks around your house. Your heart rate's going to get up. You're going to be focused on it. You're going to be hypersensitive to it, but you're going to be fine. It'll slow back down eventually, maybe a little bit slower than what normal people would, but that's fine. Then go outside. Take the next step. Go down the steps. Go walk down the end of the block. Walk back. It's okay, and you're going to find that you're going to be just fine. You might be very fearful. You might have a little bit of a panic attack. And I'm also going to say, even if you just to get to the doctor, even if you have a panic attack in the doctor, because a lot of people also develop white coat syndrome. Like I had it really bad. I still do have it bad. Like I'm going to be honest. That's probably going to be one of the last things that leaves. Is I still have a fear of doctors, because whenever I used to go in there, I used to anticipate bad news. I was really deathly afraid of the blood pressure cuff and the pulse ox and getting my heart rate taken, because I would fear that all the numbers were going to be through the roof, and they were. Even though now my blood pressure has drastically come down, even when I'm anxious in a doctor or in an emergency, I had a vein procedure done on my leg, and it was over a weekend, and the doctor's office was closed, and the fear was, okay, well, if you feel any kind of pain or swelling in the area, then just essentially go to the emergency room and get an ultrasound done or whatever, just to make sure that there's no clot. So I ended up having to do that. I was feeling some pain in the area. It did feel hardening, or the vein felt swollen. So I was like, all right, I'm not going to wait a couple of days just to prove something to myself. I'm not going to be stupid about it. So I'm going to go. So I went there, and I have my fears of emergency rooms, doctor's offices, all that kind of stuff. But my blood pressure was fine. Even when I was anxious, and I could feel my heart going, I could feel the thumping. So I know it was at least in the probably 110s, 120s. My blood pressure was 120 already. It was literally perfect. And I'm anxious, which makes me think that maybe even my blood pressure has got. And I have numbers 150 over 110. I think it was the worst, 147 over 106 or something around those lines. I just round. So I've had big numbers, and every time I used to go to the cardiologist, they used to have to do an EKG because my numbers were so high, and they would think that okay, we got to check this to make sure nothing's wrong, and nothing was always ever wrong. But then there's just the anticipation and the fears just kind of set in, and then you're stuck there for a while. So if you're in that mode, go to the doctor. If you're afraid to go to the doctor, go to the doctor. You have to, I would say that you absolutely have to do it. Even if you have a panic attack in the doctor's office, it's fine. I had numerous, almost every time I went to the cardiologist, I had a panic attack, and my readings were insane. I remember I was in there sweat, like I started to sweat and my heart rate was pounding, and the cardiologist was like, I mean, I don't have to take any measurements to see, kind of like what's going on, basically. But still, like, everything ended up fine. So go in there, even if you have to struggle through it, suffer through it, get the necessary testing done so you can start to push through these uncomfortable feelings, that you're experiencing. The absolute do not let yourself essentially willingly fall into a hole. And I know you would be like, oh, I'm not willingly doing anything. Why would I willingly want to do that? But when you're not going to the doctor, when you're not going to get things ruled out, when you're not going to convince yourself and your subconscious that everything is fine, when you're going to Google, when you're going to everybody for reassurances, when you're on the forums reading, all the bad things that are out there, which most likely isn't your case. Like, what do you think is going to happen to yourself, especially mentally? You're already in a bad spot. You're already like mentally weaker than you were. You're already emotionally weaker than you were. You're already way more fearful than you were. So going and doing those things, as opposed to just going and getting these things started right away, is only going to hurt you, and it's going to make recovery longer, and it's going to make it seem far off into the future, even unimaginable. In a lot of cases, it was unimaginable for me, and it's going to make it seem like it's an impossible task. And then it's hard to even get started, right? Because it seems like it's just impossible and it's just a waste of time. So immediately from get-go, like, take my word for it. And take other people's word for it too, not just my channel, but there's a lot of channels out there. But people who have been through it, just immediately go to the doctors, get to a cardiologist, get things ruled out. All the fears that you have about the symptoms that you have, whether for me it was like I had everything. So it was cardiophobia. I went to cardiologist. I was having eye symptoms. I went to an ophthalmologist. I went to a neurologist. I got every part of my body checked. Okay, so don't be like me. But cut it off with the symptoms that like kind of really frighten you, or the ones that are there the most. So again, if it's heart, if it's head, if it's whatever it is, get those checked. Get those ruled out. Then you have to believe. You have to start to develop some trust, and redeveloping trust in your body is also not an easy thing. And I think that's where mindfulness and things along that road of like meditation can be very beneficial in the moment of like panic attacks and all that kind of stuff. I don't necessarily know if it's the best thing for you, because it's very hard to calm yourself down after things have already been set in motion. But as a life practice, as something to kind of get you and keep you back at like baseline, and just as a life tool moving forward, I think it's phenomenal. So it's definitely something that you should implement throughout recovery. But at the beginning, again, like I was saying, whatever symptom, whatever area of the body is bothering you, go get it checked out. Make sure you have certain tests, whatever testing that it would be, I guess, commonplace for those symptoms, because anxiety can mimic a lot of conditions and illnesses, and in most cases, again, it's just anxiety. It's just your body telling you that something's up and needs to be fixed and worked on. So when that's done, now it's time to challenge yourself and grow through whatever was causing you the issues before. Check out my other videos on lifestyle and lifestyle habits, because now it's time to change these things. Because I can guarantee you that if your anxiety gets to this point where it's overblown, not overblown, but like overflowing, basically, and it's manifesting in these physical symptoms, you are not doing something positively or healthily in your life and in certain areas. And in my opinion, it's diet, sleep, exercise, relationships, somewhere around there's a problem. Either at least one of those, but in most cases it's probably going to be multiple. Also your own characteristics, your own personality. Because with me, it just takes a lot. You have to dig deep. You have to look into yourself. You have to be honest with yourself. You have to realize where you made certain mistakes, what you can fix, what you can correct. Whose belief systems and whose personality traits you've acquired throughout like your youth, most likely going to be parents, what negative qualities you've acquired, inherited, whatever, just based off your environment. That's just the way your upbringing is. What you can use and what you can't use. Believe it or not, you don't have to keep certain personality traits that you don't like or that are not beneficial to live in a positive lifestyle. But you have to realize them first. You have to do a little bit of digging. You have to realize what's problematic, and then you have to go about fixing them. That's, it's a hard part to undo certain things that you've been doing for, in some cases, decades, but it can be a very rewarding and very beneficial thing, and it'll also kind of help you understand why you got to where you are in the beginning. But for the most important part in the immediate time is that you're going to get the bad stuff ruled out, and then you can start to work on the underlying root issues. The flip side of that is that you don't listen, you don't come across this video or other videos, and you let yourself spiral. You're afraid to go to the doctor. You're anticipating something bad, so you don't want to go. You'd rather not be told that something's wrong. So every time you feel something, you go into panic mode. You go to Google. You're fearful every minute of every day, like I was, basically to the point where you're agoraphobic and you can't move. You're literally paralyzed almost because of anxiety, and that's what it will do to you if you allow it to, because it's just trying to keep you alive. It's there for a reason. It just misfires all the fucking time when you're that bad, when you're in that bad of a state. So if you don't do, what was recommended or what I recommend and getting stuff ruled out of the way, you're just always going to be in that constant fearful state. You're not going to know what's going on. You're not going to know if something's wrong, if something's not wrong. All you're going to be doing is telling yourself that I'm too afraid to get it checked and to get it taken care of. In which case you're just adding fear on top of fear on top of fear. And at that rate, logically, how will you ever come out of it? You know what I mean? It just won't be possible. You have to take certain steps. The first one, in my opinion, is to go to the doctors and to go get checked and to go get everything ruled out. Then you can take a deep breath, but of course the work is not over. You're going to leave, you're going to feel relieved, you're going to feel happy. In some cases, that's enough for some people to really kind of get over certain humps of anxiety. It's definitely enough to get over certain symptoms, but it's not enough to get over everything in most cases. There's still that work that has to be done. There's still symptoms that are going to linger. There's still fears that are going to linger. Then it comes down to, okay, so you have to find these fears, you have to find these bad habits, you have to find all these kind of things, and then you have to fix them. I think for the most part, it always comes down to a fear of dying. Death is a very, very, very big one. That was mine. Fear of death, fear of leaving. And I have a son, fear of leaving my son behind. There's a lot of things that kind of can, kind of exacerbate the fears and push the fears further, fuel the fears. So then, then it's, it takes time to work on them. But but the positive is you have the time now. You've gone to the doctors, everything's been ruled out. You're nowhere near, worried about being on death's doorstep or anything like that. Like you think you are, you're nowhere near it. It's just your nervous system is misfiring on a lot of these things because things have happened in your past, in your life, that have brought you to this point. Now you're overflowing. Now you're manifesting these symptoms, and you have to fix it. But you can't just be a sitting duck, and you can't take these steps. You can't not find out what, if anything, is going on, because at that rate, it's twofold. If there is something going on, you don't know about it, and you're a sitting duck for that. If there's not something going on, you don't know about that, and you can't move forward with your recovery. You know what I mean? There's nothing positive by not taking action. So you have to move, okay? So, that's really just what I wanted to get across in this video. It was a huge, kind of mistake that I made. Not the fact that when I first started experiencing bad symptoms, I went to the doctors, and I went there pretty much immediately, but I didn't believe anything. So I kept it going. And I did go on Google, and I started to research things because I had a cardiophobia, I had heart-based symptoms. My other videos, I had ectopic heartbeats, I had hundreds of them a day. It made me sit there in fear. So I started to Google things and research things. In some cases, it's good. I found very valuable information. I found very good videos on YouTube and channels on YouTube The bad side is you find out about other illnesses, you find out about other conditions, and you start to think that you have those. And then you start talking to people on forums and you start hearing about their conditions and you think that you have those. It's good and it's bad. Knowledge is power. But I do think that when you're in a certain mindset, it's not really power, because it can be used against you by your own mind. So the main thing is to go get these things checked out. Don't go on to Google. Tell the cardiologist, tell the specialist what you're dealing with, what you're experiencing, what you're fearful of, and then have them run the tests and have these things ruled out. And that way you don't go off thinking that you're a doctor, or your friends are a doctor, or Google's a doctor, and then you're diagnosing yourself and you're thinking all this kind of stuff is wrong. The sooner you get that done, when you start to experience those things. I'll give you another story real quick. Like, my sister did experience the same kind of symptoms. She was experiencing palpitations and some like skip beats and stuff like that. She went to a cardiologist. She was told that she was fine. Immediately, they were gone. That was enough to ease her mind. It was enough to ease her subconscious. She never dealt with them again, or put her focus or her mind there to feel things that she probably wouldn't feel if she wasn't super focused on it. I kind of went the other way, unfortunately, and it led me down a darker path for, I guess, almost 2 years. And then I had to kind of crawl my way back out of it. It's a long process. It's a very, very difficult trying process when you experience all the kind of symptoms that I did in all the different areas of the body that I did. And you just think that your body's falling apart, and you know your body and your mind are on two different pages, and you're not in control of anything, which also controls another big issue with anxiety sufferers, but that's for another day. Anywho, that's two different sides of the coin. It might take you one way where you can kind of get over a lot of things. It might take you another way to where you still need a little bit more work. But either way, you know that the worst of things is ruled out, and the fears that you have, the immediate fears of immediate demise, are not realistic. They're not logical. You could put those behind you and then start to take steps, whether it's dietary changes, lifestyle changes, exercise changes, relationship changes, stress changes, job changes, personality changes. All these kind of things come into play right after that, and then you can start to grow as a person, become a better person, and then certain things will slowly start to dissipate and symptoms will slowly start to fade. I say slowly, it can still take some time, but at the end of the day, you'll be damn happy that you went there, got everything ruled out, and the symptoms start to subside, and you can start to get back to doing certain things that you couldn't do before. I mean, look at me again. Like, I couldn't do this a year ago. You could say a year is a long time, but it's better than living with anxiety and suffering through anxiety for 50 years. So I'll take this. It's just easier to see when you take a step back on the outside looking in. So if you have any questions about this, if you're early, you don't know what's going on, you don't know what steps to take, feel free, comment, reach out, ask me questions. I'd be happy to answer. And I'd be happy to help in whatever way that I can. So, thank you all for making it to the end of the video. I appreciate it very much, and I'll catch you in the next one. Take care.